Exploring Models kit review time. Today we've got 3 kits, or 1 kit, or is it 3? Don't know. Anyway, Takon have just released their Chieftain series. So what we've actually got down here is the Mark 5. Okay, we've got the Mark 10 and the Mark 11 different types. So usual thing, no Chieftains around really. You obviously got the Tamiya one back in the day. Still a good kit, but obviously showing its age after 30 odd years. Then we got obviously these guys pop along. So talk about sport for choice at the moment. Just been a brand new release. We've got one down here in front of us, as you can see. What we're going to do is, because there's only subtle differences between them all, that obviously we'll review here the Mark 11, and then obviously, you know, there will just be the subtle differences we need to talk about with the others. So anyway, down here we've got the Mark 11, very nice box art as you can imagine. We've got some side profile views on here. Okay, and working our way around. So your kit number is 2026. And that's showing you everything we've got down there, and obviously the other 2 versions of the kit that's out there, sprue layout and things like that. Now, one thing you might hear, now I am slightly worried about this because they all do it, okay, and I've obviously opened the box because I wanted to know what it was, and lo and behold, as has been mentioned on the forum, with some of you guys have got your kits as well, mine have done it. The bag that the actual links come in, as you can see, is open. Brilliant. It must be the worst bag ever, quite frankly. What it is, they're heat sealed and then cut. Unfortunately, the cut is right on the edge. But technically, this is supposedly a tape bag, you see, and they've still split on the side. So the bags are rubbish. All of them, doesn't matter which one it is, and to be honest, we have 5 of each of these kits in here. They've all done it, every single one. So what I've done is I've had to open them up for the ones that have been going out and things like that, and put the bags, a new bag in with them in, because otherwise the risk is, and I'm not sure if we've lost somewhere along the line as well, is that they're going to fall out of the box. So if they, hopefully there'll be a few spares in there, but definitely from our point of view is a little bit concerning, because I'm not sure I've got all the tracks to them, because if they burst around at some point, then we're in a lot of trouble. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the sprues out, because I'm worried about losing the actual areas. Okay, so that way we can leave all the bits in here, because that's it, that's how they're running around in the box, which is lovely. Okay, so we'll have a look at those in a moment. Right, down here we have a very nice booklet and our instructions, the photo etch. Okay, so if we just get this out first. So we've got a very nice piece of photo etch, we'll have a look at that in a moment. We've got decals, we have a correction, and we've got a little booklet here on the different versions. Okay, so this is for your colour callouts, as you can imagine, and things like that going down there. One thing I did notice, sorry, it's just for the Mark 11, I thought it was a booklet on them all. The colour callouts for all of this are in MIG, which is a little bit odd. I'm not saying it's wrong, because obviously, you know, MIG are obviously somewhat in cahoots with these guys and all the rest of it. It's just that if you haven't got any MIG paints, like I haven't, don't think there's a conversion down here that says use anybody else's. So what you've got to do is get hold of MIG's chart and then convert to the more standard stuff, because let's face it, MIG stuff hasn't been around very often. Most of us don't have the entire ranges of everything down there, and most of us will have these colours in somebody else's form. So again, a little bit of a problem with that. I don't mind it so much with other manufacturers, and it gives you options, you know, and they just say, you know, it can be this, this and this, but this is literally, and it's on all the boxes, it says them down here somewhere. If I do remember rightly, on one of them it actually says paints colour callouts by MIG on something. There we go. It says it here, which is wonderful if you've got the MIG. See, there's another one. But if you haven't got the MIG stuff, it is a little bit of a problem. Anyway, we're getting off track. Chieftain Mark 11. Okay, obviously it's was the British main battle tank. I've been lucky enough to drive one of these, you know, and all the rest of it. Been over them, I know them quite well, and all the rest of it. I don't know the difference between markings. Literally, I just know the one that got in Bovington, and I've driven one. So that's about as far as I know with these things. Needless to say, being 6'4" and fitting into the driver's hatch of this, I don't know what it is, but that metal bar that runs along your shins isn't pleasant after a while. Anyway, usual thing, we got the stencil call out down here, obviously the markings, the bits and pieces. Then it is straight in. Very weird, it's like CAD drawings on these, but the usual thing, as you can imagine with all of these, you've got the actual suspension and the bogies and everything else going down in here. We've got the ring system for the wheels going on there, things like that, obviously drive and idler sprockets. Suspension looks pretty well complex. Got the return wheels up on the top of this as well, because obviously these are being done upside down. And then they're going to attach to the lower hull in their pairs respectively, and the track. Now the track itself, again, we can have a look at it right here whilst we're off the bat. I don't know if it is actually a click fit system or if it's a glue job. No, it's actually just, it's not a click fit, it sits there and then you're going to have to do something with it, unless there is a plate that's going to go over the top, but these just pull out. So I can't imagine these being any good as such for anything. The trouble with this is, because if it was to actually click fit and hold, that would be great, because it would be just like everybody else's tracks, the newer versions, it's very good. But because these don't, you need to glue it. Now the trouble is when you're gluing this guy is obviously having them in the right shape and the complex curves and stuff like that. How do you do that? You know, the only way I would really recommend is to PVA glue it, set it, let that go hard, and then you can pull it away from each other. But it's a little bit of a thing, it doesn't go. Now it says making 97 on each side. I'm just hoping we've got enough to make them all up left in the boxes after this. Otherwise we'll be on the horn to them trying to get some more. So usual thing, all the sets going down in there, very straightforward with the lower hull, and then obviously the upper goes there. A couple of holes to open up, obviously it'll be very dependent on the different ones that you're actually doing. You still see the boxes? You can. Okay, so upper turret goes on. Sorry, upper turret, upper hull. Then the rear, the exhaust systems and everything else, the stowage boxes, all the various lumps and bumps that you can imagine all over these guys. And then down on the other side, as you can see, we've actually got the headlights going on, the actual cages, the protectors, and all those areas on like that. Driver's compartment, hatch, side walls, things like that. The deflector plate off the front, okay, which I imagine is probably a little bit of photo etch, is it? I assume it is. Okay, on the side, so side skirts going on, those stowage boxes going on the side, tow cables, grill tops, things like that. It's photo etch on the back, so it's very nice that it's got these photo etch plates on there, gives you a great sense of depth and everything else like that. More boxes, as you can imagine, same for the other side, all the handles for all the hatches being put on, rear view mirrors for the driver, and more hatches and handles. Okay, then over here we're working on the upper turret then, so as you can imagine, working right way through. Hatches, apparently all the hatches are workable if you read the box, or believe the box even. So you can put them open or shut. You've got the gun as well, so the gun actually will go up and down as well, and the various parts on there. Saying gun mask, if we're going over it, I assume it's going to be rubber. Perhaps it's not going to be rubber. Usually they are on these things. It is rubber, I can see it in front. So we've got a rubber, the actual gun mask as well going on there. And then usual thing with the upper and lower system going down and in. Stowage boxes and all the items, again photo etch, which is a very nice touch around the outside. Okay, and then obviously we've got the gun going on the top, more stowage, and all the various lumps, boxes and everything in, which is what you're going to find will be the slight differences between the versions, I do believe. Okay, and then obviously the turret goes on top. Amazingly, it looks really complex. Looking at the instructions, it's not that complex, so you know, different way of doing it. A little bit about the other bits and pieces they do, as you can imagine. So down here, this is the colour call out we were talking about, which is great because it's all in MIG, which is cosmic. So we're all be now scrambling for, you know, obviously your conversion charts. Okay, but anyway, that's the usual thing down there. So usual things, I don't know, has it got it? Yes, it has got them. So you've actually got an unknown one down on this one. This one here is Germany, from A Squadron. And then we've got, who we got? The Dragoon Guard one over here. Quite a nice touch. I think there was 7 options in the thing. Perhaps I misread that. Okay, and then you've got the Royal Scots Guard, just the bog standard sort of, you know, drab. And then obviously you've got another nice one. It's very nice, these colours, because they had that type of thing of going through all the different versions down here. Now, the different versions on the kit's obviously going to be kit specific, but this particular review is just going to cover them all. Obviously, we're looking at the Mark 11, but you've got the Mark 10 and you've got the Mark 5 down here as well. The chassis and the overall is going to be the same. It's all going to be the lumps, bumps and nodules that are going to be different. So obviously you can take your pick from there. We do have a upper turret correction. So we need to remove this part here, which is a weird way of doing it. They obviously forgot to do it. Again, it's a multi one. One of these versions probably needs that. This particular one doesn't. Okay, the decals, which are in a weird... What is it with their bags? Their bags are awful. This is like the worst bag you could ever imagine. I'm even going to take it out. I hate that bag. But none of the bags work at all. Okay, so we've got the decals down here. Actually, they're very nice. Nice flat finish, and that's what you want, obviously, with your armour. They're very nice indeed. No problem with those at all. Okay, and then we've got in here, again, this is useless. I'm getting picky in my old age, it must be. Okay, very nice photo etch. That is uber thin, which is a problem because I've already bent it. Okay, but generally, as you can see, looking all over this, very nicely done. Apart from it is so thin, it's bending, but I'd rather have it thinner than thicker. Okay, extremely nice photo etch. Very nice detail of all those parts. The gates that actually go on are in little triangles as well, that they actually join the actual area itself, which is quite a nice touch because that makes them very easy, hardly any cleanup required when you remove them from the sprue. Okay, where should we start? Let's start with the lower turret. You'd think these bags would just fall open, but amazingly it takes a bit of work. Okay, so we've got the lower hull, no real detail on the bottom. I'm not expecting it's probably got much in real life. No real detail on here, a couple of access hatches, things like that. Generally very nicely done. Looks like we've had some cleanup work done on the ejector pins as well already. It's a very nice, sturdy, strong, satin finish plastic. No problem with that at all. Very nice, very cleanly moulded, so no problems there. Okay, loads of detail on the upper. Okay, so looking around this one, we've got engraved markings just down here already, which are a very nice touch. And then generally looking over it, a lot of this obviously is going to be covered up with the photo etch stuff, but all the actual the tanks for the fuel and waters and various things like that, very nicely done all over this one. No problem at all. It has that real solid feel to it. I know it's plastic, just styrene, but this has a real ABS, chunky, tough, strong feel to it, more than you get with Tamiya or anybody else's. So it's obviously a slightly different type of plastic they're using on these. But generally, as you can see, the detail is very nice on all of this. Very exquisitely done. Whilst we're working on these, we'll have a look at the top turret. Okay, so this is that rubber boot. Okay, for the actual gun. Quite nicely moulded actually, very nice. Not sure about the colour. Okay, and then we got the lower, which has got hatches, the rings put on there, a little bit of detail on there, but apart from that, pretty much void of any detail. And then the actual turret itself, again, looking really nice. Some very nice details on this. Again, it feels like a really thick, chunky, sturdy plastic, but actually it does bend. So I think it's a bit of a fake thing there. But as you can see, we've got hatches down here. We've got turret for the actual driver and the gunner, loader and everything else like that. They can be displayed open or closed, so it's totally up to you, whichever way you want it. Apparently they are workable as well. So moving into some of the smaller stuff, I might as well just take it out of the bags because they're only going to pop. Okay, so sprue one up. Generally, I'll tell you what's funny, the sprue itself is flat. It's actually flat sprue, which is weird. Usually sprue is round. This is like a gold bar type of shape. Okay, and all the rest of it. Ejector pin marks, they're all nicely countersunk down there. There's no problems. A couple of little ones that are lifted. A couple of bits here, to be honest, that probably need to come out. Okay, but generally looking around it, we've got no problem. No thing like flash or anything else. Very nice details just down on here on this checkerboard. It's got a little bit of checkerboard just there. That's nicely done, and all the other areas working your way through. That's the side of the turret and everything else. It does have texture. It's like a multi-texture. So some of it's smooth, some of it's got texture on. Okay, it's like the anti-slip on there already and various things. But again, as you can see, it's a nice clean sprue. Okay, so let's do that one first. Do the bigger ones, and then we can work our way in. See, this is the trouble, because the bags are sealed, like this one. Yeah, weird bags, funny bags. Okay. Okay, so as you can see, the gun's got very nice texture, very nicely moulded. The shrouds that go around these, very nicely done. As I say, by the time it's weathered, brushed and everything else, that'll look absolutely fantastic. Then you've got the side skirts running down the side, not much going on with those. Very nice sort of satin finish to those, they're nicely done. The tow cables looking very nice and everything else. Then we've got this rear plate. Again, no problems with any of it. It's very basic in its nature, but I can imagine it sort of really pops to life when you get going with this one. Okay, so next bag up, we are in here. Again, looking around at all the parts, as you can see, no problem with these at all. You've actually got some very nice details on all of these. The gun, the hatches, the stowage boxes and everything else on these. Very nicely done. Even the smaller parts. There isn't many small parts on this particular kit, but actually the ones that are very nice, very cleanly, crisply put on. The only thing is the gates that go onto them are quite thick. You know, for instance, these guys just down on here, they are particularly thick, that the way that those join on. Unfortunately, and like these joining on here, some of the parts are quite small, very dainty ones, but some of the smaller ones they've elected to go with a heavier you know, actual gate onto the part, so it might be a little bit of a chew to try and get that to cut through, so you definitely need a sharper tool. Inside, obviously, the hatches, you can see just down in here is another nice touch because there's no actual ejector pin mark on that at all. It's all absolutely fine, no problem at all. So some really nice touches on all of these, no problems at all. The impression you get is it's not very refined. The parts aren't exactly crisp and shiny, but actually they are crisp. They are very nicely done. It's just that I think the sprue, if you look at it, looks so big and chunky, it sort of lulls you into this false sense of everything's big and chunky and rubbish as well, but actually it's not. It's just that it's really odd having a flat sprue. As I say, this side's slightly tapered, but it's a big, chunky, heavy gated sprue, and it just gives you that sort of impression. Right, what have we got down here? Stowage bins. So we've got lots of stowage bins down here to go through. So, again, they've done a little bit of clean up. Some of the ejector pins you might be able to see have been cleaned up and taken care of. But again, no problem. Actually, some very nice bolt detail and everything around here, around the actual drive area and everything else. It's just that the thing that worries me when I'm looking at it, some of these parts just look universally big and chunky. A bit like, obviously, these tow eyes and things like this on for the main hull itself. They look just big and chunky. They don't look like there's any sort of movement down into them, but perhaps I'm just wrong and picking too much into it. Some of the surfaces have all got a sort of anti-slip finish to them, which is quite nice on there, but generally looking down, no problem again, no real flash on this, tiny little bits here and there, but nothing you get excited about. Be again, a nice big, thick, heavy sprue, chunky sprue. And then we got this guy here. Okay, so it's a match pair sprues. So immediately right off the bat, you probably see down here, these are very nicely done. We've got some very nice for the actual springs, for the actual the main sort of bogies, for the wheels, and then looking around at the parts. Again, I think it really is. It's just this sprue is so big and heavy, it makes you think everything else is sort of soft, but it's not, because these are actually very nice down here. The actual return wheels and the centers and everything else like that, and the actual wheels themselves, very nicely done for the road wheels. The sprockets all look very nice and clean, crisp. There's no ejector pins. Another one. There's no ejector pin marks in any of the wheels whatsoever, which is quite a nice touch. So we've got no ugly ejector pin to get rid of. There's no burring either on the wheels, so there's no center seam running around the centers of these wheels, which is another very nice touch. They're molded high. You might notice if you see them on there, they're all past the center point of the sprue, so that way you get no ejector pin mark, sorry, not ejector pin, but seam mark between the two halves. There's no burring on any of the items. That's why all of them are raised above the actual center of the mold, okay, which is how you get around that problem, which is a very, very nice, very clever way of doing it. I haven't seen it done to this extent, okay. So obviously you've got it down here on these because they're in the middle, but everywhere else that's higher, or in this case now lower, will not have any center seams, okay? So there's nothing to take care of on the wheels, the usual thing of going around cleaning them up and all of that. Okay, down in here, this is where things are going to get slightly different, I think, between the different versions, purely because the different extras and things on here. So down here we've got a little bit of grill work, as you can see, just on this guy, on this sprue here, and then obviously these different little buckets and things for the top. I think this is the main gun actual holder just down here on sprue G, but we'll have a look at the difference in sprues in a moment. We've got these which we won't bother getting out. These are just those plates which are going to go on all of that lovely track. And then we've got this guy down on here, which obviously for the clear parts, which they're all flat, so we don't really have to worry about that. Got windscreen wipers for the periscopes as well, which is quite a nice touch on those. So there you have it. That is really it. Mixed bag, beautifully done. Nice to see we've got no center seams and things like that on there as well. But what we'll do is, if we can do this without getting too much into a bit of a mess, but we've got the different types here, so we can see the sprue layout to see the difference on them, if any. Okay, and I'm just looking at them all, just trying to find the differences. So obviously down here the mark, we've got two marks out, so we've got the 10, that's the 5. Okay, so we've got down here the Mark 5, slightly different to the one we've done on here. All right, sorry, if I just move this down, I wasn't looking, if I just open this up. Okay, so that gives you an idea on the old sprue layout between the different types. So down the bottom here, this is the Mark 5. Okay, up here we've got the Mark 10 and this is the Mark 11, so it's from lowest to highest. And you can see the differences in the actual kit as you work your way through them. Okay, so as you can see, you know, basically the wheel ones are all just the same, and then over here we slightly get the difference because of the way they're laying this out. So where's B on this? So this one here doesn't come with sprue B, which is this part here, which obviously is part of the upper turret. Okay, so you get common ones and non-common ones as you make your way through, but that's your differences between the actual kit itself. Working through them just like that. So you say it'll give you a rough idea. So pause and have a look at that now. So there we go, that is it. That is your choice for a Chieftain these days. Is it better than the Tamiya one? Oh, of course it is, absolutely. But let's face it, the Tamiya one is now, I don't know, when did that one come out? 70s? So it's got to be getting on for 40 years old now. It's still a fantastic kit. You can pick them up for around about 15 quid. And if you want to go with it, it's the rubber band type tracks and all the rest of it. You're good to go. This is new tool, so you've got a lot more detail on this one. The actual track system, I don't know how that's going to work, I must admit. It'd be interesting to see how people have tackled that one on the internet and everything else like that. But generally, I must admit, it looks to be a very nice tank, very nice. It's cleanly molded. It's got some very nice sharp details and all the rest of it. The sprue is big and chunky, but I'm thinking that's more of an eye thing. You're looking at it thinking it's a mass heavy chunky sprue, but actually the gates aren't too bad. Just the smaller parts have got bigger gates. So just take your time making sure you cut them out. It might be even worth taking them out with a razor saw rather than trying to cut your way through, because they are quite thick and heavy and chunky, and a razor saw will make easy work of doing things like that. So there we go, that is the brand new 1/35 scale Chieftain Mark 5, 10 and 11 kits.